Okay, so we're here to talk about Microsoft Cloud App Security. This is the deep dive session, so learn how to deploy and manage the official title, but think of this as going through every piece of Cloud App Security as well as all of our latest announcements that you've been hearing about this week and maybe some that you haven't heard yet. My name is Asaf Kashi. I'm a group program manager on the engineering team in the Redmond side. With me is Yinon Kostika, who's the group program manager over in the Israeli side, in the ILDC side. He was part of the original acquisition of Adalam too, so he knows everything. Okay, so by a couple of housekeeping questions or just kind of level setting questions, and we're going to do this by show of hands and just hold them up there as I ask this. How many of you already attended the overview session for Cloud App Security this Ignite, or maybe even saw some version of it in another conference or some intro session? Keep them up, keep them up, keep them up. All right, I'm seeing about half of the room, I think. All right. How many of you at this Ignite started in the beginning of the week, went to our GDPR session, learning about GDPR, and it was like 3 people or 4 people presenting? All right, about, I would say 20% or 15. And then finally, how many of you this week already attended an information protection session with Azure Information Protection? Nice. All right, 75% I would say. Great, so that's all the questions. From that point on, all questions are voluntary. You don't have to answer or ask anything. Okay, so with just that level set in mind, I'm only going to use about 1 slide to talk about the marketing aspect or kind of the breadth aspect of Cloud App Security, as well as the Microsoft offering. So we're going to anchor ourselves around this slide. This is the Microsoft Enterprise Mobility and Security offering. And if you're way in the back, you might not be able to read the smaller pieces, but think of this as the products that make up the suite, the EMS suite, Enterprise Mobility and Security, give you a whole lot of capabilities in enterprise security around identity, around content, data itself, around devices, etc. So if I start a little bit on the bottom left, you can see there's Azure Active Directory. Obviously, identity is the root here, where we're anchoring a lot of our security decisions around our management decisions around identity and how it's used, where it's coming in from, what's the risk around it, and so forth. If you move up in a clockwise manner, so you'll have Microsoft Intune, and that's where we talk about devices, device management, application management. So again, we're narrowing the funnel of control from the breadth of identity next to, is that identity coming in on a particular device? Do we understand the device posture of that? Do we understand what applications are being used in those devices? We continue on to the right, and this is where Cloud App Security comes in, talking about the SaaS applications, the cloud applications that your users are going to be accessing. At that point, we can further narrow that control because we already know who they are with identity. We already know whether they're coming in on managed devices or not, or from a particular IP address or not. Now we can talk about what applications are they accessing and what can we do about it. And then finally, everything at the end is all about content. So you can talk about Azure Information Protection on the right. And that gives you the ability to control that content and to apply both labels and protection or encryption specifically on any piece of content, and it doesn't really matter where that content is flowing. So again, that protection goes along with that content. Across the bottom, you can see that we have Microsoft Advanced Threat Analytics. Today, it is an on-prem product that gives you, basically identifies all of the possible attacks around your identity. It is very identity-centric. Earlier this week, we've announced Azure Advanced Threat Protection, so Azure ATP, and that is Advanced Threat Analytics in the cloud. I encourage you to go look at that announcement, watch that session if you're interested in those things. Okay, so that was the breadth view. Now let's kind of focus down and focus directly on Cloud App Security. So what scenarios will Cloud App Security help you with? And again, this is a little introductory. Probably half of you already know these, but we'll move fairly quickly through these. So when you're, the first thing that you want to do is understand what are your users accessing? What cloud applications, what SaaS apps are being used by your users, are being used to upload content to or download content from? how much content is going both ways. And that's one of the items that Cloud App Security provides you. Basically, it gives you that shadow IT functionality, as it's known in the industry. Next, how do I limit, how do I apply controls across all of these? So now that I know which applications are out there, let me actually put some policies around that. Let me understand if a user is doing a particular action or activity, what can I do about that? What kind of policies I can apply to that? And we'll see that in detail. We'll actually walk through each one of these and we'll show you how to do it in the product, as well as a little more advanced how to use that in an integrated fashion with Azure Information Protection, with Azure Active Directory, and with the conditional access functionality. So we're going to tie it all together for you today. Again, another item that we focus on, DLP, data loss prevention. How can I understand what that content is and where it's flowing? And then finally, how do I protect them from a security standpoint as well? So all of these are canonical scenarios that we use in Cloud App Security. Again, this is the overview. You can see the 4 pillars. I'm not going to go too deep in this. The idea here is you're covering your discovery, you have control and protection, and then you've got threat detection. The item that I haven't described yet around threat detection, this is where you can do direct threat detection, where you are taking your business policies, the things that you care about, the things that you worry about, and you transcribe them into policies in the product, as well as our anomaly detection, where we can baseline your own user's usage and then use that to determine whether or not some anomalous activity is happening. Classic example of that is impossible travel. You don't need to implement that. You can just enable that, and we will baseline your tenant specifically and understand if a particular user is doing something out of the ordinary, or if they're trying to access from 2 different locations that are geographically impossible to reach within the time that they logged in from, for instance. Those are just some examples. And then the final piece on this slide that I want to call out is on the bottom right. You think of this as to control cloud apps. I used to get this question a lot in the past, especially right after the acquisition of the Adalom technology, which was, hey, now that it's a Microsoft product, is this going to be all about the Microsoft stack? The answer is obviously not. This is a cross-SaaS solution. The idea here is for us to be a credible CASB solution, for us to help you solve your needs and your problems, we have to work across all applications. So you'll see many of our demos are focused on Salesforce and Box. Obviously, we can do many of our demos with OneDrive and SharePoint, but at the same time, we want to emphasize that we work with all of the major cloud providers. We work with all of the SaaS apps out there. And as we go through specific features, we'll tell you the nuances of what works where and what are your requirements for different applications. So I alluded to a couple of announcements that we made this week. And since about half of you have some familiarity with CAS, I think it's great to just talk about this right up front before we dive into the demos. I will give you time to ask questions about these because we will hit every one of these items in the demo section. So keep those in mind, write them down if you can't remember, et cetera. So first and foremost, the Cloud App Security proxy. So we tell you about it as proxy because many people have asked us in the terminology as proxy. But the reality is this is expanding the Azure Active Directory conditional access scenario. So with conditional access, you can use a large number of conditions to apply controls to either grant or deny or require MFA, for instance, for your users. What we are adding is the ability to limit the session. Meaning you can basically say, I want to not allow downloads from unmanaged devices for accessing, if they're accessing my Salesforce, for instance, or my Box. I want to automatically apply encryption, apply protection on files if they're marked confidential while someone is downloading from, again, an unmanaged machine outside my IP range. They happen to be a risky user. Again, any condition you can think of. Next. Scanning and classifying sensitive data and applying AIP labels automatically. This has been clearly a hit demo and scenario for the majority of you, and we'll go in depth on this particular scenario. This gives you the ability to take all of those manual and automatic classifications that AIP provides you and automatically apply them in any workload that we are connected to. So think of AIP as being able to allow you to label, an Office document in Office, which was an obvious thing. All of a sudden, you can now take that functionality and apply that to any of these other workloads. For instance, the common one here is let's apply those in Box. When someone drags a file into Box, we'll do some magic and apply all these labels, and with those, protection on that content. I'm sure you've seen some form of that demo because everybody has been really liking that demo this week, and we're really enjoying the fact that CAS is showcased in all of those because that's where the functionality comes in from. Another item, the third one, support for our Azure West Europe region. One of the promises we've made was as we've integrated and became more of a Microsoft product, we would obviously follow the Office and Azure models of rolling out across the world. So this has been a need for companies, especially for companies that are homed in Europe, where they can say, I would like my tenant to be created, or at some point in time, let's migrate the tenant if I already have a real tenant in CAS today, let's migrate that and home it in Europe. That means that all of my tenant metadata, the logs that I upload, whether they're kept for 30 days, 90 days, or not kept at all, everything is going through Europe if your tenant is in Europe. There will be more regions, and over the course of the next quarter or two, we'll actually announce the different data center locations that we'll roll out to. And then finally, the new the Cloud App Discovery experience in Azure AD. So this has also been a question in the past where Azure Active Directory has had Cloud App Discovery, and this has been around for a few years, where you would deploy an agent to all of your machines, all of your servers, all of your machines, and it will do the discovery there. It will collect the local logs and do discovery. What we're announcing today is the fact that we are now enabling Azure Cloud App Discovery using the technology from CAS Discovery, from Cloud App Security Discovery. That means it's now agentless. And more so, since Azure Cloud App Discovery has already been out there and already assigned a license, this functionality stays with that license. So net, that means that if you have an EMS E3 or an AAD P1 license, and everybody loves when I talk about licensing, if you have either one of those, your tenant is going to get this functionality rolling out in the next N number of weeks or so. If you create a new tenant, you'll get it right away. So if you just want to play with it, a trial tenant will get it sooner, but we are going back and filling this functionality in. It's called hydrating. We're hydrating all of the tenants that have that license, that SKU attached to them. They will get this functionality enabled as part of their Azure AD Cloud App Discovery. And again, we'll show you this. We'll talk about it. All right, so just before we jump into the demos and start diving and going through the product, high-level architecture, how does the product look? So this slide is different from past months in the fact that this slide now has a proxy access and session box right in the middle there. It's the third one down, and it has lines around it. But if you think about the product from a discovery perspective, we have the ability to have you manually upload your logs from any one of your network devices, any one of your proxies, whether it's on-prem or some of the cloud offerings, and basically give us the ability to dissect that and give you an analysis of what your users are doing. So you can do that manually, just in case you want to try it out one time. Super easy, very fast. Or you can set it up using one of our Docker images to basically upload that automatically on a regular basis from any number of appliances, any number of devices. A lot of our customers basically deploy one of these per site, per region, per location, depending on your network topology. With our discovery, you can sanction or block apps. So as you can see, if you look at the flow here on the middle bucket, so it's kind of, for your view, it's going to the right. You can see that you're feeding the traffic log from your devices. We do the analysis, and then we give you the ability to then say, yes, I'm okay with this application for my users, but no, I'm not okay with another one. So you can sanction or unsanction. And basically, by doing that, we can generate then scripts for your network appliances, which you can use to either block those applications, to deploy them pretty quickly, et cetera. We'll also announce another item, but I'll leave that for Yinon to talk deeply about really cool stuff. App connectors. So bread and butter, the key, the kind of the mainstream way of getting all of the activities from those applications that your tenant is connected to are the app connectors. We support the 10, 11, 12 common applications out there. It's always depending, do you count a suite as multiple applications or do you count a suite as one application, both for Google, Office, etc. But at the end of the day, all of the applications that have a well-defined public API out there, we provide you with an app connector where you can attach that and we will download all of the activities and we will scan the files and we will do all of that on your behalf. And that is the most robust way to do things because it's the most accurate way. It doesn't matter where your end user, your information worker is coming in from. It doesn't matter if they're using it on a mobile device from a Starbucks if they're in the US or somewhere else in the world. At the end of the day, it's hitting your instance, your tenant in that cloud application, and our app connector can then get that activity back and operate on that. So we can do DLP scanning, we can do activities, we can do anomalies, et cetera. All that data comes in. And then finally, what we're going to show today and we've talked about this week has been the proxy apps. And this, the ability to say, hey, based on some conditions, generally in a way to quantify risk, right? I'm worried about this user, so I don't normally give them full access. That's what we're trying to solve for you. In the past, you would have said, well, if I worry about this user, I'm just going to deny. What we're giving you is the ability to say, I worry about this user, but I really want to give them some amount of productivity, and that's where we give you the ability to put CAS in the middle of that. And we'll talk in detail about the benefits of doing that and what we can provide in that model. All right, so I think there's one last item, which is the only demo that I will do because it is fake or it is do-it-yourself. So create a trial tenant. Go to cloudappsecurity.com, create a trial tenant. If you log in with credentials that you already have, then it will give you the option to add Cloud App Security directly to your existing tenant. And this, this will be a 90-day tenant, at which point, or a 90-day trial, at which point you can use all of the functionality that we have in Cloud App Security. We're the only vendor that gives you self-service around trial tenants. You can do this as many times as you want. Obviously, if you create multiples, the data doesn't migrate between them, so it's not a way to get this for free forever, but it is a way to go and start a POC. It's also a way for you to kind of play with it, understand the functionality. We have walkthroughs and so forth. So I encourage you to do that. With that, I'm going to have Yinon come up and go in depth.
Thanks, Asaf. Okay, so we'll start with cloud discovery. In cloud discovery, the scenario that we are actually allowing you to do is to first start with identifying all of your shadow IT. As soon as you identify your shadow IT, you see many applications that are in use. Now, the first question that comes up is, what is the risk that these impose on my organization? This is where we allow you, we provide you with risk assessments and comparison to other business-ready applications that have a similar functionality, where you can minimize, mitigate the risk, and either block or migrate them to your business-ready applications. Then, once you have established your baseline, you can continuously and have ongoing protection by configuring policies that will alert you when something new happens, when a trending application is identified, when there is anomalous usage that requires your attention, where you can go back and set up the baseline again to match your organization's policies. So, over the past month, we have also introduced the ability to create custom views of all of the discovery reporting on specific networks, specific business units, and groups from Azure AD. So we have built-in integration into Azure AD when we standardize all of the user information that we get, and we provide you the ability to create a report, for instance, just for a specific site, the EMEA site, let's say, or for a specific business unit, let's say financial. Okay, so this allows you to dissect your report into something more actionable in case you are a large organization and have different units managing the cloud access policy. In addition, after many requests from customers, we have added the ability to anonymize all of the PII that is uploaded into Cloud App Security to perform the discovery, so you can have the discovery report, but without disclosing the user information. And so this means that you will see encrypted usernames, and only if you have a good reason that you need to specify and is audited, you can decrypt it in order to reveal the user behind the assessment. So this is the new stuff that we've added around the discovery process itself. In terms of the Cloud App Catalog, we have added the ability to really customize it to your needs in the organization. So we have heard many customers saying that it's not only about the discovery of the application, it's also how do I manage the process of sanctioning or unsanctioning these applications? How can I label the application as being sanctioned only for a specific business unit or a specific group, or now it is in legal review, right? So we added the ability to customize all of this process on top of your Cloud App Catalog with custom notes, custom risk scores, and custom labels, and now you can really base your workflows based on this Cloud App Catalog. And lastly, we have added a programmatic access to the blocking script that allows you to easily integrate with the results, so the end results of the discovery process, where you say, okay, these are the unsanctioned applications that I want to block, and now I want it to take an effect in my organization. You can now programmatically connect it into Cloud App Security, into your network devices from Cloud App Security. Now, how does it work? Really, a brief overview of the architecture. You have many web proxies, firewalls, and all of them contain traffic logs that you can analyze for discovery. What we provide you with is a log collector that you can deploy on-prem, in the cloud, whatever suits your needs. And then you funnel the logs via FTP, syslog, or encrypted versions of FTP and syslog into this log collector. We encrypt and compress and upload them into Cloud App Security. At Cloud App Security, we apply the log parsers that know which field is which in order to perform the discovery. What is the upload data, what is the URL, and so on. Then we match it against our Cloud App Catalog, the SAS DB, that contains over 15,500 applications with risk scores. And this provides with the first level of what is the cloud activities, and what are the cloud activities that were identified out of your traffic logs. Next, we are doing all of the user resolution. So it goes two-way. First, we match groups, as I mentioned earlier, to allow you to have custom reports for different groups and business units. And we also perform the anonymization if required, so the unencrypted username is not, will not be available on any of the reports that will be created. Lastly, we are actually creating the reports and saving it to your environment so you can access it via the alerts or the reports in the UI. Any questions on the architecture? Okay. So let's move to the demo itself. So how to set up cloud discovery? We will, oh, sorry. Yes, question in the back.
So right now for your deployment models, are you supporting not just the API calls, but are you doing both forward and reverse proxies at all?
Can you repeat the question?
For your architecture for deployment for ingesting of events, are you doing just API ingestion, or are you also doing the forward and reverse proxies? I saw the connector where you're ingesting the logs, but is that a virtual appliance, and is it a reverse or a forward proxy? Okay,
so it's a virtual appliance that you deploy. We are not in line. Okay, so we just funnel the logs from your SIEM, from your firewalls, from your proxies. It can be numerous sources, and then we take the log. So it's completely not in line. We think for most customers, this is the best way to do that, because that way you can have a very broad overview of your entire network with zero impact on the users. So you don't need to funnel any traffic through any device. Just take the logs and upload them.
And then regarding your actual risk scoring, when you're doing the multiple factors, are like for the shadow IT assessments where you're discovering all of these different cloud applications and services that your users are using. When you're assigning those risk scores, are you able to break them out based on this cloud service provider originates from an ITAR restricted country, and therefore it would trigger a higher risk score versus something else?
Yeah, so I'll show all of the risk scores in a second in the demo.
So there's also another question there, but I think we'll take the one question because you're already up, and then what we'll do is we'll do the demos and then the questions for the demos, because I think we're going to cover a lot of your questions in the demos themselves, especially on the configurability of discovery. Again, it's one of the most configurable items where you can choose the weighting of every one of our parameters for your tenant. So you can say, I don't actually care about ITAR, or I really care about ITAR, or any one of those things. So I promised you to ask your question.
The question, there we go. The question is regarding discovery for AWS accounts. In the past, I think the MCAS has only allowed one AWS account discovery. And are you doing that as well as CloudTrail log analysis?
Yeah, so perfect question. It regards to the app connectors, to the APIs. And we do have, we are working on adding a multi-instance, and it will light up in Q4. It's not part of the announcement, but we are working on that, and it will be released very soon. So you can add any number of AWSs, Salesforces, anything.
All right,
yep.
Thanks.
Okay, so regarding the discovery demo, let's get back. The first, you need to upload the network logs. Then I'll show you how to create custom reports, how to create new app alerts, how to review the discovered apps and to take actions, how to customize the risk scores, and to generate blocking scripts. Once you have discovery set up, you can support all of the discovery workflows that we are talking about. The discover of the shadow IT, to support cloud migration, and to use a cloud marketplace that we call, to use the cloud app catalog and really make the most out of it when assessing your cloud apps repository and what is used in your organization and not. Now, let's switch to the demo and start everything. So this is a cloud app security dashboard. Before I start, I want just to get back to how you actually assign a license. So when you go to your Office admin portal, then you go to subscriptions, billing subscriptions, and this is my user, for instance, and you can see that I have assigned the EMS E5 license. This means that as an admin, I can now log into the portal and start using it, okay? Since also I'm a global admin in this tenant, as you can see in the roles, okay? So this is just in order to log in. This is the first login, and then you're good to go. Then you get to Cloud App Security Portal. In terms of an overview, for those of you who have never seen Cloud App Security, this is a general dashboard that has all of the signals from all of the different components that you have deployed. So proxy, discovery, app connectors, information protection, threat detection, everything funnels into here. Once you have the dashboard, we encourage you to follow these 3 steps of deployment. Upload logs for discovery, connect applications via either proxy or the app connectors, and create policies to really shape the way your organization uses the cloud. We do have, and since it's a deep dive, a very, very extensive documentation. I think the only one out, the only CASB that has all of the documentation out there that explains everything, A to Z, about the product and how to deploy. You can refer there at any time, including to our tech communities, to ask questions and get support. So this is a very live community around Cloud App Security that you can use when you actually go through the process of deploying it. Now, in the dashboard, we can start with the discovery, investigate all of the activities and files, for instance, the controls when you set up policies, and see all of the alerts. Before I have a deep dive, I do want to go to the settings for a second to explain a bit more. So when you have this is the general settings. You can see all of the domains derived from your Azure AD. This is used in order to identify what is internal, what is external in terms of sharing. You can see here some Azure security connectors around Azure information protection, whether they are imported automatically or not. And you can also see some additional configurations around Office 365 and so on. These are the general settings. The piece that I want to show you is around the user management. All of the user groups are used across the product. So starting with discovery, activity logs, files, everything. So I want to start with that before we have a deep dive. We are integrated into Azure AD. So as soon as you connect the Cloud App Security to Azure AD, you can import user groups from your Azure AD environment. Once you have the Azure AD, the list of all of the Azure AD applications, you can see here that we already imported, for instance, a group from Office, all of the Office 365 administrators. This was imported automatically. You can also see that I imported a group named Executive from Azure AD. Once I have imported a group into Cloud App Security from Azure AD, or from Salesforce, or from Box, or from any other application, I can use it in order to segment all of my experience here. So to create specific alerts, specific reports, and specific policies scoped only to these groups. So this is just where you set up the groups. Now let's go back to the discovery. This is a discovery dashboard that you get as soon as you upload the logs into Cloud App Security. The first step that you should do, is to upload the logs. To upload the logs, we have two mechanisms. We have the snapshot upload, where you upload the single-time logs that are used only to create a snapshot report. Okay? This means that you have, let's say, logs from the past week, already exported, and you want to see how does it interact with the discovery. What can I discover from these logs? So you can use this easy snapshot tool. You just need to specify the report name, the description, select a data source. Now the data source is a format that is used in order to parse your logs. We support over 20 different formats today. So all of the leading appliances, proxies, and firewalls. And we have also added the ability to provide your own custom log format. The custom log format is really useful, for instance, when integrating with SIEMs that you export and you have a custom format that now you can specify by yourself which field is which, as long as it's a CSV or a key value log. You should specify here what is a parser name, how it is delimited, and all of the fields that are used in order to create the discovery report. You can also, once you upload the logs, check the checkbox for anonymizing the private information, and this will enable the anonymization piece that I've mentioned earlier. Here you select the logs, you upload, and as soon as you complete, you get back to the discovery report where you can select out of all the snapshot reports that you've uploaded, the results that you've seen. The snapshot report is only the first tool. Okay, this is only to the getting started, just to see that you can gain value from the discovery because you have logs. The real way to deploy the discovery is to go through the continuous log collector. So in order to configure that, you're going to the log collectors, sources, log collectors, and here you can see that you can set up all of the different sources that you have across your environment, very similar to what you have seen with the snapshot report, but now it is kept as a configured data source. Then you get into the log collectors. The log collector is either a virtual appliance, okay, as you can see here, or a Docker machine that you can easily download and deploy. You need to specify some parameters, for instance, the name, the IP address, so we can automatically configure it on the server that you will deploy, and the list of different data sources that will be funneled into this log collector. Why do we need that? Because we provide you, along with the configuration file, for instance, in this one, we provide you, my internet is super slow, just a second. Okay. Okay, much better. So now what you have you can see here that I have a demo alert source actually funneled to this log collector. And as soon as this happened, I get a command that I should run on my log collector that will automatically configure that. I also have the settings that I should put in each source in order to funnel the logs from that source into the log collector. Okay? So these are all of the settings that you need to do in order to set up your log collector. Once you have installed the log collector and configured the source to funnel the logs into the log collector itself, this will go automatically, and we monitor that and alert you if we see that a source is, for some reason, down and didn't upload as much data as it used to upload, so you can troubleshoot it automatically. Questions?
I think there's one right there.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
So a little bit back, you said that Auto-Discover will discover different types of groups. And I thought that you said notes groups, if they're in the Active Directory, will they grab them and upload them as well, or no?
So Azure Active Directory, you can either use AD Connect to sync the groups, or you can create Dynamics group on Azure Active Directory directly. We will pull any group from there. We can also pull the groups from other sources, like if you installed Box and you manage your groups there, or Salesforce and so on. We pull these groups and allow you to do these settings based on them. Okay,
but you're saying we don't have to do anything custom or additional for them to discover those and pick them up? Because we have a lot, we're moving off of Lotus Notes, and we have a lot of our clients in Outlook now for mail, but there's distribution groups that they use. There's Lotus Notes apps that are going to take years to migrate, so we have to sync constantly with Active Directory. When we go to the cloud, it would be great if we could just pick them up and move them up without having to do anything extra.
That's a great question. We don't support distribution groups that are only configured in Exchange usually. Okay. We do the security groups that you can use to do all of the security policies in effect. So we are aligned.
That's what I was afraid you were going to say, but okay. All right. Fair enough. Thank you.
There's a question over there.
So the actual encryption for, when you're doing the discovery, where you can basically anonymize, the IP address, so you're not revealing that information. Are you able to bring your own key in support of that using an offsite HSM?
So you can bring your own key, but you don't hold your own key. Okay? So you bring us the key, we encrypt. We have to do that because otherwise we don't have a way to match for groups, and we can't make sense out of the data. So we are doing that. As soon as we encrypt, there is no access to the decrypted data unless, and let me show you that real quickly. In the anonymization, you can take the encrypted username and provide a business justification to reveal, to decrypt to the original username, and this is well audited, so you have full visibility into which users were and were not.
But all of that is going to be done in the cloud, so there's no capability for us that, let's say, for instance, if we wanted to de-anonymize, to maintain it on-prem where, we get that authorization, and then those folks will be provided the key in order to, to decrypt it. That's not supported the way you guys have it configured.
Correct. It's only in the cloud.
Okay, thank you.
And this is a use custom key option, by the way. It's also here. So going back to the upload these logs automatically, once you have configured the log collectors, the logs are funneled, and you're good to go. You see here it's a demo environment, and you get alerts as soon as one of them doesn't get the logs that it used to provide you with. Now, in the discovery, you can create also custom reports. So you have seen here, all of the data will get to the global view, global report, but you can easily go back into the Manage Continuous report, and here I've already created two types of reports in advance. The first report is only filtered on the executive group, and the other one is filtered on a subnet of my network that is of interest. You can create other reports simply by providing a name and specifying additional filters either by user groups and IP addresses that are in use, and that's it. You just create it, and then you're good to go. In the discovery report, you will have all of the different reports available to you here. Okay. Now, as soon as you have the cloud catalog, let's see one. You have the cloud storage applications. You have all of the cloud storage applications that were identified based on the cloud app catalog in your environment, and then you can start filtering on them. So filtering, for instance, all of the risky applications. You can see all of the cloud storage applications that have a high risk and are being used in your environment. You can see to what extent they were used in the environment, and you can see here, and this is going back to the question that the gentleman asked earlier, around what are the risk factors and how can you configure them. So you can query, for instance, on each compliance risk factor that is identified here. So all of the cloud services that are ISO, they are risky, so none of them is ISO 2700 compliant. But you can also filter all the ones that are not. You can view each one of them in order to have deeper, a very quick assessment into the cloud service and what is risky and what is not. You can go even deeper. So you can go into the usage patterns of the application itself and identify who are the users or IP addresses that were actually using the app. So you can see a very granular overview to the user level of what is the usage pattern of this application. Now, as soon as you have identified whether this app should be blocked or not blocked in your environment, you can go into the quick action button and either label it with one of the workflow labels that we've mentioned earlier, for instance, in legal review, deprecating, etc. Or you can mark it as sanctioned, meaning this is okay to be used in my organization, or otherwise unsanctioned. As soon as you mark it as unsanctioned, it goes into the list of blocked applications. So when you go and you generate a block script, all of the applications that you marked as unsanctioned will be included here and will be imported into your network appliance in order to block them. For each application, on top of that, you can add custom notes and risks that allows you to customize the experience here. So for instance, if I go to the Adobe, I can easily go into override app risk score. I can decide it's not 9, but it's 8 or 7, and provide notes into the application. This allows me to have a unified process to maintain my cloud app repository and my state and to label it accordingly so everyone can know which applications have been through assessment and which has not, or at what point they are.
So you haven't gone over it yet, but you probably will. Custom applications that are created and deployed on an IaaS platform, whether it's Azure or AWS. What are the capabilities of the product of being able to find it in Shadow IT, as well as be able to incorporate it into your policies that if, let's say, we have applications that we're developing ourselves on different IaaS, how does this tool integrate with those applications to provide some of these same capabilities?
Okay, so custom application, today we are based on the Cloud App Catalog. One of the big, also for the proxy and for the discovery. One of the big endeavors that we have on our roadmap is to add full support for custom apps. This goes very much aligned with what Azure AD is doing and with what Azure provides you with. So the ability to onboard any application that is line of business app or custom app on either cloud or on-prem, and to add it to the same process. Now, it's less relevant for the discovery process, maybe in terms of the Azure applications and custom cloud applications, but it's very relevant for all of the other controls that I will show, and this is the next thing that we will add to the catalog.
Because I think you would see value, especially if you have your internal folks, your developers that we have in IaaS, and they're throwing stuff up there that security side of the house, oh, what is this new app that's now popping up in our Shadow IT?
Correct. That's the Azure scenario that I mentioned.
Okay. There's one there.
Can you elaborate on the process of blocking an app when you say if it's unsanctioned and have to block it?
Yeah, so I'll give you just the experience. As soon as you block an application, so I can even demo it. No.
Let's hold that one because I want it joined with the next announcement. Hold that thought. We'll get to that one in a second. Question?
Pretty similar. I was just wondering where in the path of your network connection this has to be the block.
All right. So I want the
Okay.
next announcement.
So everything-
actually, show of hands, how many people have some form of Zscaler in their environment? Any kind of form? 1, 2, high. All right. I would say about a quarter of the room is kind of raising their hands. Probably some of you are testing, some of you are in production, different forms, et cetera. So one of the common things that we've gotten was, hey, this is great, discovery is interesting, but we really want to automate it more. So to answer the question, and Yanan's going to show this, when you sanction an app or unsanction an app, one of the things that we provide you is basically a script or the way to say, okay, these are the things that you've said you want to block. Now, a lot of times we used to get the question of like, why don't you do it automatically for me? Well, we wanted to have at least one extra check there because otherwise you're basically giving the ability for a CAS administrator to press the button and block network traffic across your entire organization for something. So we gave you an extra step where we would generate the script, we would generate the list of domains. Basically, we do all the hard lifting behind the scenes, and then we hand that to you, and you can, most customers basically went through their process and then would automate it in some way. As simple as pushing the script in an automatic fashion, but having yet one more human kind of pay attention to that and put their eyes on it. One of the other things that we've done, and this is the kind of announcement today, is where we've enabled a lot more automation with one of our partners that we've heard from our customers that they would like to see more of that. And in this case, this is Zscaler. So why don't you walk us through it?
Okay, so there are 2 points where you integrate with your network appliances. One, where you pull the logs, the traffic logs, in order to perform the discovery, and the other one when you push the blocking scripts back into the proxies or network service. Now, this is exactly what we have done with Zscaler and more. First, we have automated the process of uploading the traffic logs. So automatically, a customer that has the traffic logs from Zscaler and has Cloud App Security can automatically funnel all of the logs back to Cloud App Security for discovery. As soon as the logs are achieved, you can enjoy the Cloud App Discovery, but also what you have is a very quick risk assessment on the Zscaler. And I'm showing you here the Zscaler dashboard that includes the Cloud App's Discovery functionality, the risk assessment. You can pivot from here into Cloud App Security in order to investigate all of the different activities exactly like we've seen earlier in the other examples that we've had. So who used the application, to what extent, and also to see the full risk assessment that was identified by the application. Now, I want to go back into the Zscaler portal and show you that it's not only, just a second.
As you can see, we're doing this in real time, directly to the net. So everybody turn off your cell. No, just kidding.
So in the Zscaler, you can see here that not only we have provided the logs, we also are providing all of the block scripts automatically back into the Zscaler service. So now, exactly like there are other streaming media, etc., feeds that go into the block list of Zscaler, now we have Cloud App Security, and you can see that this is continuously syncing between Cloud App Security and Zscaler to actually maintain the most updated status of all of the block list. So you don't need to do practically anything besides deciding which apps are allowed or not allowed in your organization. And the rest is automated. Now, when you do that, you also have a policy in place that allows you to block, based on this list, everything in the Zscaler that go through the Zscaler proxy. And by that, I will show you just very briefly the experience. So this is a file dropper application when using the Zscaler proxy. I will now remove the Zscaler proxy, and it will be accessible like to any other user. So with Zscaler automatically integrated into the MCAS block list without the user can access directly. So this is exactly full integration from the log collection to the blocking of all of the cloud activities by partnering with Zscaler on that. Question? Did this answer the question? So for the rest of the partners, you have the ability, so we need a cloud service in order to work. Zscaler are full cloud service. For the rest of the partners, you can actually automate the process programmatically using our APIs. So you can take it and push it into their appliance.
So think of it as the first one. We could do more. It all depends on the partner, the product that you provide. Zscaler was highly complementary with their product to the CAS solution. So, and there was clear demand from our customers for that. The question back there.
Yes. How do you handle a sanctioned application, like SharePoint Online or something like that, but an unsanctioned tenant? Does that make sense? So like, I want to make sure my users can't upload to another SharePoint tenant that I can't control.
Yeah. So I'll give you a quick overview of that. You can see here, since you've mentioned SharePoint Online, so you can see here that we provide a subdivision of all the discovery results to provide you with details of each tenant in your cloud, in your environment. My internet is really slow. So here you can see that the Microsoft SharePoint Online application provides you with an overview of everything. But when you go into the subdomains, you can see a separation of each subdomain that is used across your environment, and you can decide to block or unblock everything but, etc. So you have this visibility, and you can take an action by replacing, let's say, the generic SharePoint.com to only a subset. Make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Great questions, by the way. Clearly deeper than the overview type questions. All right.
Okay, so this is a Zscaler integration. We have covered this. And also, we have announced the Cloud App Discovery in Azure AD. This means that any Azure AD customer can now have visibility into shadow IT reporting without the assessment, but to start the journey of identifying the cloud applications or across the customer's environment. And this is exactly the same process as it used to be, as I showed you now on Cloud App Security. Now, information protection. Yeah.
Small question regarding the Cloud App Discovery. Are you removing completely the agent or not? I'm especially thinking about the PCs that are roaming all the time.
So what we're doing is we're providing anybody that has the licenses with the functionality of Cloud App Security's discovery functionality, a certain amount of it, and we've got the details in that. The rest of Cloud App Discovery is still going to work for the time being. Over time, I can see where that would no longer be true. We haven't announced any particular date around that yet. We do want, if you are using Cloud App Discovery today, we would love for you to leverage Cloud App Security's Discovery, the new functionality that we've enabled in Cloud App Discovery, and see that it meets your needs before we go any further and have any further conversations. We expect it to exceed your needs. Because it's a much more robust infrastructure. Over time, what we've heard from customers, such as yourself, is I really don't like having to manage agents on every device, especially for discovery when I can get it elsewhere.
Okay. We really need to move forward, so we'll take questions on discovery after.
We'll follow up the question later. We're going to move to information
around
protection.
information protection. So Microsoft's approach to information protection is to detect all of the data wherever it is, in the cloud, on your devices, or on your on-prem services, on-prem servers. And as soon as you detect it, to classify it, to protect it, and to monitor who accesses your sensitive data. Now, we have done a tremendous progress over the last quarter in delivering this vision. So when you look at the lifecycle of a sensitive file, what we provide you with is the ability to detect it, and as soon as it is detected, we apply the Azure, based on your policies, and I'll show you how to configure that for those of you who are not familiar, how to create custom templates that protect sensitive data with right management and with permissions in your environment, that then, as soon as the sensitive file is protected, you can be, actually, you mitigate any risk of this data leaving your organization because it is protected with your identities. So now, even if you have a file that is uploaded to a personal Dropbox or sent via your personal Gmail, it doesn't matter because it is protected when it moves onward. So, we have various solutions that apply these different controls. We have solutions on the device, the Windows Information Protection. We have solutions built in to Office 365 that actually apply this on Office 365 workloads. And we have Cloud App Security that makes sure that as you can do it with Cloud App Security on Office 365, we can extend it to other third-party cloud applications that we will show you today. What we are doing, we are providing you visibility into the data and its sharing level. As soon as you have this visibility, you can classify, label, and protect all of your data in your cloud environment, so it is being safe, even if shared externally or publicly via a link. So you can monitor what is sensitive and protect it as it is there. Now, as soon as you have this, every incident you can actually investigate and monitor with Cloud App Security, and I will show you how to do it right now. Just to give you a bit more about the architecture, as soon as we are reading all of the files metadata, we identify what is the context. So we have a file, we identify what are the effective permissions of this file. Is it shared publicly? Is it shared with external users? And so on. We have the activity API that allows us to know exactly when a file is being accessed or uploaded, so we can react to it and we can automatically classify, label, and protect it. And we also have introduced the proxy that now can inspect inline traffic of risky sessions and apply the same controls that you have. As soon as we have the file, it goes into our scan queue. We apply the content scan engine. The content scan can be either our DLP engine or a third-party DLP engine that you can integrate via ICAP. As soon as we identify, we alert you, and we can provide automated remediation options such as protect, quarantine, remove sharing, and so on. So now I want to demo you first how can you connect cloud applications via the app connectors and the proxy. Second, how to set your first file policy that actually does this cloud scanning, and then how can you actually establish these different information protection workflows for classifying, labeling, quantifying risk, and auto-remediating various risks in your environment. So going back to the demo, we'll start with the app connectors. The app connectors are the API connections into your sanctioned apps. You usually need to be an admin in order to connect an additional application. The question that the gentleman asked earlier is actually whether you can connect numerous Salesforce and Azure and Box and other apps into Cloud App Security, and the answer is yes, very soon. And when you connect it, you can see that very quickly you just need to add an application from the list. You can follow the guide. So for instance, ServiceNow, you can connect by providing certain configuration that is needed to create the OAuth token. And once you create this connection, Cloud App Security can continuously monitor your environment, but not only to monitor, also to remediate and take an action. Now, once you have done that, you have full visibility into the activity logs and all of the files in your environment. The files screen allow you to ask different questions on what is the risk in your environment. For instance, how many files do I have that are publicly shared and also contain a label, let's say restricted, confidential. So I can very quickly identify exposures that I have in my environment across numerous applications. So you can see here SharePoint Online, Dropbox, and Box. The reason that you can do it using the same query is because we standardize the language that we use across all of the environments. So we identify what is public sharing in Dropbox, in SharePoint, in Box, in any of the applications that we onboard, so you can have the same language when you configure your organization policies. From here, you can very easily go to say, create a new policy, And when looking at this new policy, at the file policy, you can see that you can specify all of the different filters. You can scope the policy to selected folders or excluding selected folders or sites in SharePoint. You can apply it only to a specific group. As I showed you earlier with the users, you can apply it only to a specific group of users or only to a specific business unit. You need to import the group first from Azure AD or Salesforce or Box, etc. And then you can apply that. And here you can apply the content inspection method. The content inspection is what do we do on the content itself. We have our built-in engine that came from the original Adalom acquisition that has all of these different preset expressions as well as the ability to run custom expressions. Now, Microsoft decided to go on a unified classification capability where we leverage the same one as Office DLP is using. So, for instance here, what you can also use is a Microsoft classification engine, and now you will see something that is much more similar to what you see in Office 365. So if Office 365 identifies a credit card, we can identify the same credit card. And if Office 365 adds new GDPR file types, I can also detect these new GDPR sensitive data types. So this really allows us as Microsoft to deliver you the vision of a uniform classification and protection capabilities across your environment. Now, you can create an alert on when you, for instance here, what we've created, every public file that is also confidential and contains credit card information, you can create an alert, but you can also take an action based on the violation itself, automated action. It's not only the alert. You can notify the user, and you can create other actions, such as remove shares. If it's public and sensitive, let's remove the public share and mitigate the risk, right? So you can easily do that using Cloud App Security. What we have announced recently is the ability to apply a classification label to it. What is a classification label? Let's go to Azure Information Protection for a second, and you can see that I can create, as an organization, a list of what is to define, what is sensitive to me as an organization, and how do I want to protect it. So for instance, if I have secret information, a secret label, I can define exactly what are the conditions that meet this secret definition, and what protection do I want to apply to it. Do I want to label it? Do I want to watermark it? Do I want to protect it with write permission? So only users from my organization can access it later on. So this is exactly what we have done, and we integrate directly with this list of templates, protection templates, in order to apply them on other cloud environments, such as Box, Google Drive, and others. So you can easily use that, for instance, the secret label, and now every violation that is met will be encrypted automatically. Questions around this? Yeah.
Can you mix here in the file policy that you're configuring things like, for example, let's say I want to discover synchronization action in foreign countries for files that have been classified as internal only?
Okay, so what you can do, all right, so the question was around if you can make it with activities. Like
because I think you can create your policies for files, for action or activities, or you had several categories, but you cannot mix everything.
Okay, so you can, okay, but this is, it's not the cloud scanner scenario. This is the scenario here is that you can take the classification label, scan your entire cloud environment, and make sure that everything is benign. Now, what you are referring to is the ability to identify when someone from another country accesses a high sensitivity file, for instance. Yeah. And you can do that in the activity log. We actually read the classification labels into the activity log, so you can use them also when you alert on that. I can show that later.
And it can be in policies or only when you search, when you investigate?
You can do it in policies.
Both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when you're doing the governance on the box and Dropbox, that's only for business accounts, right? That's not someone's personal box or Dropbox account.
Correct. So the question was, are those business accounts or consumer or ad hoc accounts? These are tenant accounts. All of the governance via the APIs are all about accounts that your organization owns. So you're connecting to your tenants or multiple tenants worth of accounts. This is not about randomly ad hoc, my own personal, upload, download site, wherever it might be. Now on the discovery side, which we talked about earlier, we're finding all based on traffic. On the API and the information protection side, we're focusing on everything that you own, that you want to control and protect as an organization. At that point, you can apply those labels automatically, no matter which account it's connected to. Okay?
What about Dynamics 365?
What was that with 365?
Dynamics.
Dynamics. So
CRM, ERP, Dynamics AX.
Dynamics is on our list as far as coming soon kind of thing. We're aligned with the way Office 365 integrates that. So given that we have a large one Microsoft model here, what we're doing is specifically leveraging the work that other workloads within Office are doing. So we don't want to build a one-off specifically for, let's say, Dynamics without the rest of the Office ecosystem supporting that as well. So we've pooled our resources to provide one single connection point where all of the activities there would show up. It is on the roadmap. What's it?
Let's take a pause for questions, and then, because we have 10 minutes.
Okay. Do you want to just say your question just so we can...
Yeah, just a quick follow-up on the box question. During discovery, can I differentiate between which is a tenant version and which is a misused personal version?
Yes. You have the sub-tenant division.
All right, let's keep going, get through the next demo. We'll stick around for sure for additional questions. So if we don't get to you in the session, we're around.
Okay, I want to explain a bit more about the conditional access piece. So I'll get back to questions on information protection later. So conditional access, what we provide you with is context-aware session policies. It's the first time that an identity solution, namely Azure AD, provides you the ability to identify what are the risky sessions and then not only apply controls in terms of multi-factor authentication, block allow, but also restrict access to the application. How do we do that? We identify, using conditional access, the risky situation that you define based on your policies, and then Azure AD redirects to Cloud App Security, the session itself, that Cloud App Security now enforces with your own configured policies, for instance, to allow browser-based view-only mode to any access from an unmanaged PC. We can also not only block download, we can also protect the data as it is being downloaded from your managed environment to your unmanaged devices. So this gives you also the visibility and protection into the data that was extracted from your sanctioned environment while an unmanaged device had access to. Now, I want to go very quickly onto the conditional access. So you have here the ability to define rules of what to do. Cloud App Security provides you the limit access functionality to any SAML-based application. So you can configure the different policies, and then let's see what the conditional access, for instance, allows you to do. So if a user comes from an unknown location, we can block any file on download if we think it is sensitive. Another scenario that we have is when a user is actually accessing, everything is benign, but the data is sensitive, we can now identify that as soon as we have a hit in the classification engine that this data is sensitive, we can actually protect it as soon as it is being downloaded into, for instance, an unmanaged device and a specific user and a specific group and so on. What's unique about this solution that it is built directly into your identity stack? I'll show you very quickly how to set it up in Azure AD and then in Cloud App Security. This is Azure AD conditional access. Azure AD conditional access allows you to configure policies on any access to your cloud applications based on Azure AD. You can see here that we have a rule applying to box that if a certain user group accesses a certain application, then we have only a checkbox. That's all you need to do in order to add the application into Cloud App Security. You check the box, and then the application, the session will be routed based on the criteria that you mentioned into Cloud App Security. In Cloud App Security, you can add what we call the session control policies. What do you want to restrict exactly? So here, let's take the protect download policy. You can go here into the restrict download itself, and you can see that we have specified, for instance, that if the user is that and the device is not compliant or domain joined or valid, is valid through, has a valid client certificate, then apply, monitor all activities and control file download. We can also apply additional controls as a file on the file itself. So we can apply it only to specific file types, only to specific classification labels, extensions, and so on. We can also inspect the content inline, not only the label itself, to identify whether the file is sensitive or not. Then, in the actions, we can decide whether we want to block the file or to protect. Again, you can see the same list of templates that is synced from Azure Information Protection that now you can apply inline. Very quick demo of this functionality. You can see here that I have two browsers. One is identified as a managed device because this is a VM that is part of my Contoso domain. And the other one is actually an incognito device that is unidentified. I'm accessing to Box through both of them. And then, as soon as I access from the unmanaged device, you can see a note. Actually, this is something that you can decide whether to show or not to show to the user. But the user receives a note that this access is monitored because this is an unmanaged device. You can encourage the user to enroll to the device, to access via a proper managed device because the user accesses corporate resources on an unmanaged device that might be infected, might be compromised. But you can also decide, the user can now decide to continue and access the application. You can see that from this point on, everything is the same experience. However, when the managed device tries to access my Cloud App Security report, which is super sensitive to the organization, I will have full access into the file itself, meaning that I can edit, copy, do anything. I own the file. I can now send it via my Gmail. It's a managed device, so it's okay. I have other protections to put in place there, such as window information protection and others. However, if I'm doing it from the unmanaged device, I will actually receive a file that is protected based on my policies that will actually encompass the file with another layer of security that will go with it wherever it is. So even if I don't own the device, and I don't manage it and I can't secure it, I still know that my data as an organization will be secure on it. So you're seeing the same file was intercepted inline and now it was protected, and you can see that there is Contoso confidential view only template here, and you can see the permissions. This allows me only to view the file if I want to keep it for offline, to work with it, but I cannot copy, I cannot do. And obviously, this is fully configurable. I can do it only for a specific group of users, and so on. Moreover, now I have full monitoring on the file. I can know exactly who accessed it and when. So I have full auditing capabilities, even if the file is not part of my managed environment. This you can apply to any SAML-based application in Azure AD. We will add more ways to deploy this. Currently, it covers all of the public applications that you have there, and you can apply it to each one. Questions around? So,
there's one in the front and one in the back real quick. Right here.
Yeah.
So, having downloaded the document, what can I do to promote myself to ability to actually see that document? How can I promote myself so I can actually see the content? Can I, if I copied it?
You need to provide your credentials, corporate credentials, in order to view the file. So you have to authenticate yourself before accessing the file itself.
So will the Microsoft Word ask for credentials to promote, or you have to send it to some other application?
No, so it's natively built into the Office applications. As soon as you open the file, this is based on the Azure Information Protection technology.
So if I open it in Office 365 as opposed to Office on my machine?
This is actually Azure RMS. It's not Office 365, it's Office. This is the Azure Information Protection integration that we talked about.
So again, I'm confused as to how I get that document I've downloaded open and functional and editable.
So when you're downloading the document, in this case we downloaded for Box, whether it came from Box, OneDrive, doesn't matter where it's stored, Azure Information Protection policies are wrapping the document. This has nothing to do with CAS other than the fact that we originally decided that that's how we're going to protect it. That's all embedded into Office clients of any kind, whether it's in the cloud or on-prem, and it'll basically prompt you for that credential. It'll prompt you for the identity that is allowed to open that. If you supply an identity that is not listed in the policy, you will not get access to the file, or you will get limited access depending on the policy. We can show you specific demos on that, and you can learn all about Azure Information Protection. We have 3 or 4 different sessions this week on that.
Okay, we don't have time. We can take it after the session. I want to wrap the session, I'm sorry.
The only question I have is, what is the roadmap for this capability for the federal instances of O365 and Azure?
So I'll take it after the session. We have a roadmap on integrating to all of the regional areas, but I'll take this separate, okay? I want to wrap the session for everyone. Regarding the conditional access, it will be enabled later this month, late in October. If you want to actually join it now, you can email us at mcaspreview@microsoft.com, and we will be happy to enroll you on our private preview program. This is actually available as today. So, wrapping slides, we have seen how to set up the conditional access. Conditional access is built on Azure AD and Intune. Intune is what gives us the compliant devices, Azure AD, all of the domain registered, and the link. We apply the additional controls. We have another component in private preview that allows us to link not only Azure AD SAML-based application, also to applications that are based on legacy IDPs. So if you have your legacy IDP that is used to SAML, to access applications, and it is a SAML-based, we have another component that allows you to extend the same controls into these applications as well for your legacy apps. You want to wrap?
Sure. So, all right, so one last item to mention is our external integration. Throughout this, we've highlighted a lot of our internal, how does this work within the product. One of the things that we've enabled over the last couple of quarters has been both external DLP integration, so we work with Semantic Vontu. That can be one of your sources. We didn't demo it here, but you can bring in your own classification, your own DLP. Another item is the ability for you to export all of the activities or the alerts or any subset of those by any kind of grouping to any of your on-prem SIEM. And we use a number of different standardized formats where we won't make you rip out your own ticketing systems, your own systems where you manage security today. We can work with them. So that's a very strong kind of connection. And then finally, everything that you saw Inan do from the UI is scriptable via API. So everything is available for you to use your own API and to automate. And we've got a slide on that with PowerShell. I don't think we're going to demo PowerShell today. That in its own is a full session. So again, when you look at the entire suite of enterprise mobility and security, you can see how CAS is fitting into that suite, both as a best-of-breed CASB solution, as well as a highly integrated piece of the entire puzzle. So we're heavily focusing on those integrations where we're providing you value which is greater than 1 + 1 = 2. It's becoming 1 + 1 = 3 or greater in this case, to use a cliched little statement. So thank you for coming today. We'll be around for more questions. Let us know if you try this out and need help. We're always happy to support. We have a CXP team and a program management team that is happy to engage when you're happy to give us feedback and to work hand in hand. Thanks.